for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumine, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone and welcome. Today we're going to spend some time together a little differently, and I want to talk about the presence and grace of the Holy or Divine Mother of life and life-giving. You know, I was inspired to make this video today after talking to a beautiful being that I love very much. And it's very known to me from my own experience that a lot of the times those of us who are here, who are doing this purpose and shining really brightly through our missions and intentions that we bring forth, not just for the people but the planet itself. And we often come across this feeling of being alone, you know, and we haven't received as much as we've given. We've sacrificed so much in our lives. And what I realize myself is that the moment when I myself come to that kind of feeling, sensation, it's literally a threshold in which I will actually feel that I'm perhaps overgiving, giving too much, overextending myself. And at the same time, it's an invitation to go deeper, because we all are learning the way of the new. We are still heavily influenced at this time when the ages are shifting with this notion of intensity. We even, you know, I use the same word. These times are super intense. And we can fall prey to the stories and narratives, not just the media and the general public, and what's happening with the people, to the people, from the people, by the people. And it's like having this feeling of pulling us somewhere to the space. And sometimes it's through people that we know. Sometimes it's through events that are very physically difficult for us to hold in our heart and hold the space for. But, you know, at the same time, this is actually opening up new levels of our awareness and potential as human beings. So after having this conversation, I actually asked the Divine Mother about more insight about this. And it was just basically one simple sentence that came through. Because a lot of the times there's this question as a narrative within those of us who are constantly doing this service, the selfless service work. And the question was, you know, am I doing enough? Have I done enough? How do I know, you know, whether I've maybe, you know, chosen wrongly, or maybe I should have, you know, had a different alignment? And where is my integrity taking me? Where is my alignment taking me? And so this sentence coming through was so simple. And it was that oftentimes there's this idea, you know, that great people, great souls were those who've, you know, caused a tremendous shift in the collective because they've done a lot, or, you know, they were really bringing forth a personal sacrifice to the greater whole. And some of these sacrifices are very obvious and self-evident, very clear, and some of these are behind the scenes, and sometimes they're even greater. Making them behind the scenes, you know, just because they're like that doesn't make them any less. Sometimes they're more. But the sentence was that it's not the, like, how much we give that makes us great, but it's in how much we're willing to receive where our greatness truly comes from. And when we say willing to receive, it's like from the gift of life itself, from the gift of Holy Spirit. And there is a lot of different levels of what we call receiving. You know, you might receive something physically and it's a gift, or it's an opportunity. And we always think that that's what receiving is. So if we don't have as much of that at present, we think, you know, maybe I haven't done enough, so I'm not receiving in that same harmonic alignment. But receiving is such a multifaceted understanding, because in each time we expand a little further into our true core essence, we will feel receiving as something different. So I'm going to just share from my own personal experience, because that's the way I live and that's how my life is. I haven't, never in my life had a lot, like plenty, like a safe and secure home space or home base, or like a partner that would be, that stability in my life, or a large family, or just a group of friends in my physical life, even though I know a lot of people non-physically. And sometimes that may make one feel, ooh, I'm not receiving as much. The gift of spirit hasn't offered me plenty. But we all actually receive in a way that's in alignment with something that spirit has intended just for us. It's just that we're not always aware of that. And because we compare with others sometimes, we think they're ahead of where we are or receiving more. They just receive in a different way. And we are actually one body of being. We're one being. So when someone has the comfort of something that I don't yet have in my life, I like to feel into it as if I'm the one experiencing it, because they're just another me. And the gift of what I have and what I've had so far was the freedom to just really live freely. I never actually had to do something in particular to be as free as I am. And that was literally my gift, this freedom that, was mine to anchor and essentially help others to awaken within themselves and eventually start embodying and embracing as their own gift of life. So what comes with that is the awareness that the next level of the new age we like to talk about so much will be presented to us by the hand of the grace of Divine Mother, as life herself, as life itself. We've talked about it, that this has divine trinity to it, which is the giver, the receiver, or the recipient of life, and the essence of life itself. So when we understand that, and again, it cannot just come from a mental kind of understanding, but when we can resound with that, when we can really integrate it, we resonate with it at the core level, it becomes us. So we each have an individual, unique expression of life that no one else has. And it's always difficult for me to compare myself with others, and we all have done that throughout our lives, because actually comparison leads us to more deeply unveiling the gift of the self. And just recently, one of my friends, she said to me that she received her own guidance, that the way she anchors light is just by being happy and simple. She doesn't always need to know and understand much of, what's happening in the world, and all of that, because sometimes we feel we do and we must, and because we're humans now, we need to know every single thing and be a part of every single experience. And I often feel like that. I feel like if I'm not going to be present with every single news outlet or what's happening, I'm going to miss out on something. And basically that's the feeling of separation. In truth, the biggest gift of spirit is in realizing that our own unique individual life essence is the greatest contribution to the world that is already. So when you're living that highest potential of life for you, you're already bringing the highest aspect, the highest point of validity, but not just validity, but value, in a sense, of that which is just purely essential. You're bringing that to the collective and the world already. But because we still have, and we've been also programmed to follow a certain, line of what makes us have this feeling of value and validation, and that needing to shift now. So basically, a lot of us who've been, especially those of you who've been on the forefronts, the leading edges, the precipice of this awakening movement, and those of us who've been doing tremendously advanced physical ascension work, we've always felt like ahead of the game, and because of that, we also were isolated more in certain things that, we experienced differently than others. And so we thought, well, I'm sacrificing my own life just for that. But I'll tell you something, my own experience that I had once. I was really in that most deeply challenging part of my life, which was, last year in wintertime. And I just called for it, my spirit beloved, my counterpart. And I said to him, why am I even here? I don't understand anymore, because there's so much suffering I have to experience at this time. And then all of a sudden I saw this vision, and he showed me like this vision. It was like this universe, and there was like an approach of something completely non-organic. And he said to me, look, this is what's at stake. And when I saw that, I had like an instant knowing, oh, that's why we need to be here exactly right now. It's like the future becoming the past, becoming the now as they merge through these timelines, and it's basically because all life is interconnected. And when we're experiencing those aspects of our life, when we need to actually shed our skin and go deeper, we're often not going to see always this higher perspective. And my gift was always to offer this, and that's why I started doing these one-on-one sessions as well back then, because just Spirit speaking through you and opening the gates so that someone else could see the highest perspective for where they are currently in their life. So it was like my gift. And the funniest thing is that the greatest gift we have or we own naturally, it sometimes cannot be implemented or used on ourselves. And that's because we perhaps haven't always allowed ourselves to be the recipient of our own gift. And we haven't always taken the downtime needed, that which is a prerequisite to actually really merging with that. So the gift of Divine Mother at this time is to remind us that the times we're entering will need to be entered through the feminine principle and the feminine wisdom. And we, like I said, all talk about it. But there's another aspect to it that hasn't been lived through yet. It hasn't been experienced yet, especially because, as you know, this feminine principle of life has been completely obliterated and, obstructed for eons of time here. So naturally, it causes us sometimes pain and difficulty, and it's tremendously challenging to experience this first. Like, can I be in this way when the rest of the world is suffering? Or, is it possible for me to just retire from what I used to do and how I used to do it and just start something completely new? So even service, like selfless service, has levels and layers to it, which will gradually shift for us. And many yogic teachers and masters have been actually talking about how the more you expand, the less you need to do. And Spirit always tells me less is more. It's not about the quantity, but the quality of life we live. And like I said, from my own experience, I haven't always had many things, like physically, but it made me more free to not miss what's not there. Because people had things in their lives and they've abandoned them or they lost them somehow. And it's not just, it has nothing to do with, okay, we need to learn to not be materialistic, because there's people who are enjoying the beauty of life and they're not materialistic at all. I value the beauty of life and I have my own desire to live and experience that part of life one day. But it's not as essential to me as that which is my natural, like inborn gift that I have, that it's like within me, that I can just sit and be in this presence of Holy Spirit once it just moves through me. And in that moment, I don't need anything. I don't miss anything. I don't have a desire for anything. But it's not at all times, you see. Sometimes you're in a more difficult condition, or you're surrounded by more difficulty and challenging environments and densities, people, situations. And at that time, you don't see as clearly and you can't feel it as intensely or strongly. Like, I will always feel it when I'm alone in nature. That's why I spend so much time alone in nature, and that's why I can channel so purely the essence of my own spirit being. And I can bring it through tremendous ease, and that's how it looks like. But it doesn't mean it's always there and it's always just this aspect here, because what makes us grow towards the new and what I call the new novelty of life is like when we witness those aspects, they outgrew themselves. We outgrew them, and they have literally exhausted all of the potential in these cycles. So there's, for those of us who are now at the verge of this newness, right? And it's like we're standing at the threshold. We're all feeling this longing for something more, and perhaps this longing, we're in a lesser frequency because, something from the environment or something just triggers us. We become more vulnerable and more sensitive, which in a way it's good, because when we're vulnerable, we're actually open to newness coming in because we're surrendered more. And right at the same time, it's like we feel this longing, but we don't always know how should it look, how it should come. And we still hold a component of thinking that like it's a compliance with the age that was, with the reality that was, because reality as a status quo is maintained as it is, and there's a high level of maintaining it. So that's why being on the verge, on the precipice, those of us who are here like that, it's more difficult for us because we're holding like a minute aspect of this novelty, hasn't been as widely spread yet, but it's like it goes deeper into life. It penetrates life much deeper. So it's in the depth that this presence is held. It's not so much as in its width yet, right? It hasn't spread so far and wide yet, but we're now focused on this to really bring it deep. So that's why I feel also a lot of us are coming together within the family of light, not just our own family of light teams, but as missionaries here on earth. So meeting these people who feel like home and who feel somehow they nurture us, because we're learning how to hold space together, not just in our aloneness. And even though we might be in our own secluded areas in different parts of the planet and regions of this life, there's still an importance of holding this space together now. Because the feminine aspect of life is not just about, holding space and receiving through the womb of life. So we're not just stars shining. We're always saying we're the lights of this world, so we're always needing to shine and do and produce through this shine, right? I always feel, and that's kind of like why I actually embodied the Trinity principle, like this womb of the mother of life, this creation, can only be achieved when you have the whole triangle, right? So we have all of these aspects as one, the three levels of the goddess, right? And again, I want to go back to the statement that goddess is not a figure, a deity. It's the descent of life, becoming more and becoming illumined eventually. And we can each have that. We can experience that. We can become it. So it's not just in this, right, that the goddess is being met and seen and, experienced, but it's also new aspects of feminine expression of life that we perhaps haven't even talked about yet in this realm or perceived before. That's why we're kind of like on the edge right now, because we need to open up to more. So we've been talking about, well, the feminine principle is this and it's that and is that. We have to know that the feminine principle in each density will vary, will come through a very specific way, right, of emanation of what that is. But holding the space means entering the womb or entering the cave where novelty can come about. And that's usually the most excruciating process. That's why most people are not ready for it. Not everyone is ready to become fully newborn. It's a difficult thing most of the times. So I want to invite you in this space much more deeply. And I'm holding the space for sometimes sharing these messages or channelings of the Divine Mother to bring about this love, that Divine Mother truly is, because we often forget. And like I said, we think we're aligned with it, or we think we're receiving from that aspect, but yet it's so much more, and it can be so much more. When you have these moments, when you have a spontaneous feeling sensation, like you've never had that feeling before in your life, it's like, how can I, like we instantly go into that mode. What's this feeling called? What am I feeling right now? You see, it's like we immediately want to jump into the old and this structured way of processing. But for me, Divine Mother is something you cannot even process. It's something you can't even fathom. It's just like pure life. It's life happening. It's life being. It's like just pulsating, and it's mesmerizingly beautiful. And you can experience that beauty even when you're in the midst of trials and tribulations and huge challenges. And one of my invitations for today is maybe we stop using, or just use a little less, the word, oh, it's so intense now, because I use it myself all the time. But today in this meditation, I was shown like we don't have to focus on it so much, because the moment we do, like the grace of the divine moves into that which we're creating. So we're going to, as a collective of light beings, learn how to hold space in a new way. I've already made a channeling for holding space, and we did some group meditations on Patreon and Ascension. That's my page. And much more to come. So holding the space for these messages to come about in perfect divine timing. Today was just like an opening. And as you know me, I can be in many different versions of the energetic expression. Sometimes I can speak very fast, hyper, I'm active. I can jump subjects really fast. That's my multidimensional nature. Sometimes I really like to speak slowly and softly. That's what I usually do when I do light activations, meditations. And, it's all different energies depending on what needs to come through or what expression is there as a dominant force at that moment. So this is that realization that life is, it's all life, you know. And we think life is what we live, like what we do, where we live, how we create, and we put like something on it. Like the moment we put like a firm structure on it, it becomes rigid. We can always lose that, right? And that sense is like, ooh. But when you see life as the spiral, even that which we've lost or hasn't come into full realization or embodiment or something like that, right? Something didn't happen for us, an opportunity was passed. It's always going to come back full circle, and it's going to come into even more refined way. That's what we're learning now, to embrace this feminine principle of life. Like I said, not just talking about it like, oh, it's the awakening of the divine feminine. No, it's first the opening to the unknown aspect of what that even is, so that we can have a direct experience, not just like this constant filling ourselves with an idea or an ideology. So that's always my desire. And because a lot of people who've been lights in this world for such a long time, and they've been undergoing through mass spiritual modalities, going from one workshop to the other, so much teaching and learning, it's going to be more difficult, I guess, for these beings, because this will cause like a major like subtraction of it all, and then just coming, like, you know, you're digging yourself out of all of that, and it's just like been perfect, but it's outserved itself. And then you're just gonna, out of all of that, right, resurrect yourself. And it's like coming in this new form. That's how I see the new Illumined human. And it's, again, still very mystical and archetypal when I speak about it. But like the essence of it, it's already bringing like something deeply into our experience. Because when you can feel it in a certain way, it can become a reality. But we don't have a control over that, right, over the process. So let us surrender even more into the mystical nature of Divine Mother and her infinite wisdom, infinite love, infinite power. Okay? I'll talk to you next time. Hope you enjoy this, and much more to come as always. With so much love, wisdom, and power. Take care, and goodbye for now.